Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being patient with us as always. Welcome to Keystone Central School District Board of Directors. This is a special voting meeting, September 8th, 2022. We will start with a salute to the flag and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic with which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dietrich,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Elling,
Present.
Mr. Johnston,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Here.
Mr. Koch,
Present.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, here.
8 members present.
We do not have anyone signed up to speak. So what I'm going to do is introduce each of the candidates for our vacancy and ask them if they have any additional questions. So our first one was Mr. Frederick Schulz. Do you have any additional questions for the board?
I do not have any.
Okay. Roger Butch, did you have any additional questions since you weren't here?
I have a couple of things I'd like to see on mine. First, I'd like to apologize to both of you for not being here last week. I had a prior engagement, so I wasn't here. So,
Butch, could you speak into the microphone, please?
all right, Wayne. I have that stomach issue.
Thank you,
Can't
Mr.
get
Coe.
close. Again, I'd like to apologize for not being here last week. I had a prior engagement, but if you would, could you just, for my knowledge, could you introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about yourself and then why you'd like to be on the board. If you, I guess, go with, on here is Mr. Schultz is first and Mr. Cannon second. Just, if you wouldn't mind.
Please call me Rick. I'm a professor over at Lock Haven University in public health education, Department of Health Science. So I do see a number of your graduates and also in the dual enrollment more recently. And I've been in education over 20 years. And so it's an interest of mine as I'm nearing retirement of devoting more time to community service in Lock Haven. Part of my background has been community service and some other organizations. I currently serve as board chair for AIDS Resource, which is a community-based organization. Their main offices in Williamsport and a branch office in State College with a myriad of like small contract offices throughout the region. So my background has primarily been youth and youth services and education throughout my career. And so that's what I wish to emphasize. And also part of my job at Lock Haven is to teach the health ed portion for the health and phys ed majors for their teaching certification. And so I, for example, this semester have foundations of health education for the freshman health and phys ed majors. And I've seen a marked decrease in the number of students choosing education as a major in about the last 10 to 12 years, where some years ago, we used to have a waiting list for all these courses. And for a myriad of reasons, I think for many of us are familiar with, that students haven't been choosing education. And I would like to make that a priority of looking at education as a viable and rewarding profession and getting that point across as much as possible.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. More trades for more education.
So-
My name is Tom Cannon, and I'm a PennDOT employee going on 14 years, drive truck, operate equipment. I live in Bald Eagle Township. I have served on the Bald Eagle Township Sewer Authority, so I'm a little familiar with meeting settings. I'm very interested in trades. I'm really interested in helping to promote trades, because society can't function without having tradesmen. Being I work for the state, I was talking with Rick outside, we're so shorthanded on people because people can't get CDL licenses, or they choose to just not work. And I just feel that, I can help influence maybe some children into going into trades. I was a welder in the service, and I just feel that that's very important.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Okay. So I do want to say before there's any motions on the floor.
Roger, yeah,
I actually
Roger.
have a couple questions. I mean, that's fine. If you just want to blow me off, that's fine. I get it. I get it. I see how I rate. All right. I also apologize, guys. I kind of had a back issue, and I am actually being electrocuted as we speak right now to try and deal with that. So, I appreciate you giving me a little bit of background about yourself and stuff like that. Okay. I actually have two questions for both of you. So it'll be the same question, and then you can answer. Okay. The first one is, Rick, you mentioned community service. Okay. What kind of community service have you done in Clinton County?
I serve as chair of the Castania Township Recreation Committee. Excuse me. And have enjoyed the meetings with the township supervisors and our committee and our collaborators, primarily around Castania Township Community Day, and have thoroughly enjoyed I should say almost every aspect of it. And many of the other community activities with AIDS Resource have either been university-based. Each year I coordinate a student health fair on campus that includes probably about 25 to 30 community agencies. And so it's an attempt to connect students and faculty and
Right,
staff
yeah.
with the community. So those are the major activities.
Tom?
And communities activities in Clayton County. I work with numerous youth in bass fishing.
Okay.
I've been a fisherman as long as I can remember. And I work with quite a few youngsters. I take them out fishing. We have little events, other adults with the children, I'm also a trail runner, participate, in trail events,
5Ks, stuff like that.
5Ks,
Yeah,
25Ks, whatever.
right.
And I work with a lot of youth doing that, helping them train. It's not official school work.
Oh,
It's
no,
not saying,
yeah.
it's just, I take these kids and we go work. We'll go
Right.
down to Zendel, we'll go to Heiner, and we'll run just to help them get involved in activities like that, get them off the couch.
Well, I was in RWB and now Vets Plus. So we've run a couple of the aid stations.
Okay,
So, if you came through there,
you probably have seen me.
yeah. I don't recall you.
I was
because,
probably
there's a
sweaty.
lot of people.
I was probably sweaty and out of breath.
Okay, and then, oh, for Pete's sakes, me and my brain. Okay. Oh, yes, the other thing is, okay, question to both of you, okay? I want you to understand that whenever you take on this position, It's a very time-consuming position, okay? Are you willing to take on the responsibilities that are put forward in the time commitments? Because like I said, you're looking at probably 40 hours a month, if not more, between meetings, between different things that we're doing, so, is that something that you are willing to look at?
Yes, I wouldn't have put my name in for it if I wasn't willing to give up time for it.
Okay,
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
I fully understand
Okay.
the implications
okay,
and the dedication required.
okay, thank you.
Good, good. All right. So before there's any motions on the floor, this seat is up for election in the next election cycle next year. So the unsuccessful candidate, I still encourage you, whoever it is, to continue to follow us and then put your name in next year. The primaries in May, we're nonpartisan, you can cross file. And then, still, even if you decide not to run for election, I always encourage everybody to stay involved and follow. So with that, does anybody want to make a motion?
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Koch.
is the floor open for nominations?
Sure is.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Schultz to fill the position on the school board.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Schultz. Do I have any seconds?
I'll second.
Mr. Knopf seconds. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Mr. Koch,
Yes,
Ms. Lynch,
Can I abstain? I like both of
Mm.
them.
No.
Nope.
I just, will you? Because I honestly, I cannot, I want both of you. And I don't think legally, can we do that legally? Get
No.
both of them?
No,
Okay. All right, so then I'll just go with the consensus, okay, with the understanding, or, I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk so much. Sorry,
Yes or no?
Yes.
yes or no?
sorry.
She said yes.
yes or no, Elizabeth?
Yep,
Oh, I
she
said
said
no, I
yes,
said
Wayne.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Koch.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dietrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Alling.
Yes.
8 yes votes, motion passes.
Seriously. You both
Okay.
have such-
All right.
If you have any questions on the process, let us know. We'll help you out. You bet you've done that. You know what you're
Yeah,
doing.
so,
All right.
all right.
Thank you.
Seriously, thank you for your interest. and
Thank
we
you
look forward to
both
hearing From you.
for being here and putting your name in. It's
Okay.
greatly appreciated.
Deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. So, thanks.
Thank
Tom.
you.
So,
Thank you
Rick,
very much.
come on up and we will officially swear you in. Yep, go up here to Mrs. Long.
I've never had.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I mean, I don't, there's
solemnly
both things I
swear
like. in both of them.
Welcome. Welcome to
that I
being
will
on the board.
support,
Well, normally
obey,
it's pretty.
and defend
That I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and Constitution of this Commonwealth,
It is.
and Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity,
of my office with fidelity.
Welcome to the Keystone Central School District School Board.
Thank you very much.
And
Yeah, we'll just have them over here next to Elizabeth.
Don't worry.
Mr. Lopez, the photo credit is on its way to you.
Okay, so could I have a motion for adjournment for this meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. So without further ado, nobody needs a break, right? Because Butch wants to get out of here.
Oh, I need about a 10-minute break. Yeah.
All right, so I call the voting meeting for September 8th, 2022 Keystone Central Board of Directors to order. We've already done a flag salute, and moment of silence. So let's do a roll call.
Mr. Dietrich,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Elling,
Present.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Here.
Mr. Coke,
Present.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
and Mrs. Smith.
Present.
8 members present.
Okay. The Board of Directors held an executive session September 6th, 2022, from 7:10 to 7:15 PM to discuss personnel and legal matters. We've also held an executive session today, September 8th, 2022, from 5:35 to 6:31 PM to discuss legal and personnel matters. Need that time too. So we have no presentations this evening, and no one has signed up to speak unless Rogers Caller would like to speak. And
Not
so
happening.
we will move on to our superintendent's report.
So I would like to first thank both of the candidates who applied for the position on the school board. I know that I know how much hours folks put in this role, being an elected official and being unpaid. And because I spend a lot of those hours with you. So
Most of-
I just think it's commendable that people are willing to step up and serve in roles of community service. And then specifically, Dr. Schultz, thank you so much for being part of our board and welcome. So the next thing I would like to do is I'm going to ask our secondary principals if they'll come up to this table. You guys may need to grab an extra chair. The reason I've asked them to come tonight and talk with you is because this year for the 2022-23 school year, we've made a couple of changes and adjustments in our secondary school end of the day time, which has been historically known as I&E or intervention and enrichment. And in previous years, that extra time in our elementaries has been called WIN time. WIN time stands for, it's an acronym for What I Need. And we decided as an administrative team, K through 12, that all of our schools would use that additional time in our school day for WIN time K-12. I have received over the last week or so, a couple parent phone calls, but also from students or maybe some recent graduates who said, they've talked to some students and, is it true? What's the stuff that we're doing? And so I'm thinking if I'm getting phone calls, you're probably getting phone calls or questions. And I thought maybe it was a great opportunity tonight, since we had no other presentations, just for our secondary principals to give you a little bit of an idea about what is secondary WIN time. And so what I can tell you is the main purpose behind it really has to do with targeted and timely interventions, as well as building relationships with our students, between our faculty, staff, and our students. So they're going to talk a little bit about that WIN time, and then additionally, the changes in the cell phone policy that were put in place in the handbook, as well as lanyards with IDs. And so I'm going to just turn it over to these gentlemen for you to just explain those three changes and why we did them.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Really, these changes were in an effort for exactly what continue to really.
Can I interrupt this 1 second? Because we have a new gentleman, could we introduce ourselves?
Of course.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Nick Varelli. I'm the principal of Central Mountain High School.
I'm Dave Peters. I'm the principal at Central Mountain Middle School.
I'm Mike Hall. I'm the principal at Bucktail High School.
In an effort for us to continue to grow teachers, students, staff, building relationships, we decided to go district-wide with this WIN program and What I Need. There are different aspects to that program. One of those aspects is some circles, some restorative practices where we're trying to get students to be able to sit down in a circle talk with one another, talk with their teachers, and just get conversations. Mainly what we've started with are icebreaker activities. And really all that is what teachers are doing already, but we're taking it to a level where we're getting students an opportunity to talk about, and these are not controversial topics. These are not anything on that nature. Today's topic that we talked about today was what if working in a group, what is something that would help you if you were working in a group? Our overall goal, going back to PBIS, one of the main ones at the high school is professional. And what we had them focusing on was no matter what you do after you leave here, or maybe even now working somewhere, you're always going to have to work in a group or with other people. And to do that, you have to be professional. And a lot of that has to deal with, you may not necessarily love what Butch has to say. I know some of you feel that way. But you certainly should respect the fact that he's able to say that. And you should respect the fact that he's in that position to do that. And that's what we're trying to teach those kids in the circles, and just get an opportunity. They don't have to talk if they don't want to talk. If for any reason they want to pass, they are willing to pass at that point. That's more along the lines of what circles are. The other things, some other things that we do, remediation time, additional enrichment time. We are doing clubs and activities. I know these guys are, I don't want to speak completely, just let me speak about it, but we're requiring all students to either select a club or an activity. And what's very nice about that is teachers are also doing that. They're in charge of an activity or a club. Some of these clubs or activities are as simple as, I would like a quiet space to be able to read. We have people that are talking about soccer. We had other ones the other day that kids were talking about MMA fighting, and they're not actually fighting. They're having those really all it is another opportunity to get kids engaged and build relationships with teachers. And that was our ultimate goal.
So I wanted to add also that we utilize some of the time for some PBIS rewards. And we typically look at Fridays for those type of awards, not necessarily every Friday, but depending on how we're working with that. One of the big things that we really tried to do this year was accentuate the positives and not put so much emphasis on the negatives. Obviously, we have a handbook. Obviously, we have consequences and things like that. We'll be following those as we have to, but some of the things that we've started, positive phone calls and things like that, and I've already made 6 of them at the beginning of this year, and they've gone over really well. The families really like to hear those. And what we're trying to do is tell the students, be kind, be professional. And then the other things that we've had, be safe, be responsible, be respectful, and making sure that those students are following that. And that's all they have to do. And they can earn the right to do all of our positive behavior rewards. And that we've also put into the win time. I think that the students have really accepted that what I need as more of a, okay, this is really for us, not like the old I&E that was, okay, maybe I had something to study or maybe I had something to do. It wasn't really set up the same as what we've done with win time.
And I would just follow what Mike is saying there. I think that was where a lot of our conversation came, is really looking at that time that we've devoted for students every day, and then to really make sure we're getting out of it what we intended. And so we felt like we needed to be a little bit more targeted with the types of interventions. So we've done more planning. We've identified groups of students that can benefit from that support. We've talked a lot about our school culture and how we develop those relationships with students. And those were 2 big things. And one of the things that we've worked on this summer, along with our staff, is the restorative practices piece. And so as part of participating in that training with our behavioral specialist, Kelly Swartwood, we've then been able to kind of take some of those back, work with additional staff within the building. And it is an expectation that everybody will be participating and doing some of these same things. And so we think, again, it will really help our school culture. It will deepen those relationships between students and teachers. And we think that's going to be a powerful piece. And then again, from the intervention side, we have a lot of data. We're trying to really dig into that data, look at what we're doing with it. And again, making sure the students what they need is what they're getting, and not just that we've provided them a time, but that we're trying to be really targeted, with that type of instruction during those times. And again, I think all of us had talked, our schedules are very similar. We all have time for the restorative piece. We all have days set aside for intervention. And then we've also tried to provide opportunities for our students and teachers to take advantage of our positive behavior programs within our schools.
So, and one last thing that I wanted to mention is what we've really talked about with our staff and students at Bucktail is the Bucktail way. So they're seeing what the expectations are. And this is what we do as a Bucktail student. And I think too, Central Mountain has done something very similar for what their students should be doing. But if they have that expectation, it gives them a focus and something to work for.
I think what the nicest part about all this is that we're working collaboratively together. And there's a consistency across both high schools and the middle school and now at the elementary schools. So as they come up, there's this consistency across the district. And I think that's something we've been striving for a long time.
So I think you hit on one of the things that I feel is very important, is that these efforts are proactive, they're intentional, and they're meant to prevent a lot of the behavior and discipline issues that this board has discussed in the past as something we really want to focus on our energies on. And so we know that building these relationships and having the restorative time is research-based practices that we know have an opportunity to work and make things better. And as you said, improve culture. I'm very proud of the administrative team because of their collective efforts and working together, coming to agreements on what they want to do and hold the line consistently across the district. So thank you for that. Could you, anyone who wants to address the what's different for cell phones this year?
So I'll go ahead and address that from the Bucktail perspective. And I think that we followed suit at all the schools. So really the goal is during our instructional time and during the professional time to be professional. You can't be on your cell phone just texting anybody and trying to get into things. So really it's in a pocket, in the chart pocket that we provided or in your own pocket. That's okay as long as it's not out. And one of the things at Bucktail is our teachers are following that as well. They're modeling what we're supposed to be doing with the cell phones. Now, here's the thing though, too, is we're in a 21st century. Those students are going to have access to their cell phones at any time outside of the walls of our school. So we want to work with those students, and they know this, that, okay, you show us, you can get away without your cell phone. You don't need it. You're going to have those opportunities and know how to use that cell phone correctly. 4 to 5 weeks down the road, do we even need those pocket charts anymore? Probably not. They'll just know that it has to be away in their pocket. They'll know the responsible way to use it. If they don't, those are the things that we have to work on. It is in our handbook, some of the things that we have to strive for as a progressive discipline to make sure that they don't use their cell phones inappropriately and so forth. But this still has to be a learning opportunity for them. In the pockets, out of the way, teachers can teach. When they need them, the teacher says, hey, I need you to go get your cell phone. It's right there available for them, that kind of thing. But they need to know when to use it, when it's appropriate, when it's professional.
And so from our end at the mid-level, one of the things we met last Friday with every grade level of students, brought them all to the auditorium and talked to them as part of a presentation on this. And this particular topic was one of the things that we really wanted to emphasize. Our policy has been off and away throughout the day. That's what we've used for years. It's what we tell kids. But again, we got more intentional with it. And so we broke that down to what that means. And so from our end of it is in a backpack turned off, or in a designated area such as a bin or a pocket chart in the classroom for students. And so one of the issues we know we were seeing is students had them in pockets. They were going to the restroom to use them. They had them inside hoodies and various different things like that. And so just trying to, again, be more clear and more direct with our expectations, making sure that we outlined that message from the very start of the school year so that they had it. We've talked to the teachers directly about modeling. And again, If the expectation is that for students, the expectation is that for teachers during their instructional time as well. And so just having those conversations, and again, trying to make sure from the start of the year, if there were any areas that we could clarify or improve our communication, that we've done that from the start.
I'm not going to talk much more. Those guys did a fantastic job of hitting on it. I support Dave in the fact that I think at the middle school level, I like the fact that it's off and away throughout the day. But then I think once we start to come up here, it's our job to try and teach kids how to use this technology in the correct way. And that's why we've transitioned at the secondary level at high school to off and away during instructional time. And it goes back to that, be professional. When you're at a job, you're going to have that phone. You can't be texting someone or looking on it whenever your boss is talking, you're in the middle of the meeting. So our job is to get them ready for whenever they, after high school, and be professional.
So I'll just add to what you're saying. It's also my understanding that there are exceptions to the rule. If a teacher has asked students for an instructional activity and they wish to use their phones to access something such as a survey or something that they need to access or they may access, that is permitted. So we realize in the 21st century that cell phones are also a tool for learning. But there is an awful lot that needs to go into the digital citizenship and teaching students how to use them responsibly and not as a tool to bully others or so forth. The other thing that I want to mention is you keep saying be professional as an expectation. I've heard it from all of you. When we think about 21st century learning and we think about being a school that is future focused, most of you have heard this before, that we're trying to prepare students for their future, not our past. And that we know that academics are important. They're essential skills in academics, but they're not adequate. There are other skills that employers seek out of our graduates, and they're not just going to happen by chance. We need to be intentional and purposeful in setting expectations and supporting students in meeting those expectations. So again, the practices that we're putting in place are intentional. Nick, if you could please speak to the final point I asked about would be the lanyards with the IDs.
Sure. Tomorrow is picture day, and part of the lanyards with the IDs is one, for safety purpose. We want all of our kids to have lanyards with the IDs and the pictures on them. The other part is a little bit of convenience too. In our cafeterias, if they use their card, it probably speeds up going through the line, cuts it in half. So it's sort of a dual purpose, but the main focus was we wanted kids to be able to have lanyards for a safety issue. Right now, we're requiring anybody that comes into our buildings to show an ID. Once again, we go back to, we're getting you prepared to be ready and be professional for the world after this place. That is just part of it. It isn't anything that is any major thing other than a safety and trying to speed through some of the stuff through the lunch line.
We're providing the lanyards and they are breakaway lanyards as well.
That's exactly what I was about ready to ask. Are they breakaways? Well, I'm not worried about the little kids. I'm worried about the big kids. Someone grabs that, they can choke somebody. Okay.
That was my first question.
As Mr. Verrilli spoke to that, we're going to be doing the same exact thing at Bucktail. And that was actually a request from our cafeteria staff that they have the swipe cards for the lunchroom. So we're planning the exact same thing. And what it also does is the students that we share between Central Mountain and Bucktail, it creates that consistency.
Yeah, I would only echo what Mike and Nick said. And I think just to take it one step further, I think in that communication, both with our cafeteria staff, but also with Sharon and as the director of food services, we're looking for a way to connect them also to our positive behavior. And one of the things that we talked about at our level is students that have that they share that responsibility coming through the line. That's a quick and easy way to reward students for helping us to expedite the process of getting students through lunchtime. So again, I just think it shows our work as administrators trying to collaborate across different departments and again, tie everybody into what we're trying to do with the positive behavior aspects.
I think the last part that's also very nice is you guys did a wonderful vote that kids get into athletics for free. And one of the ways they get in is to have that ID. And it's really nice if it's just hanging right there on your neck. So it is a convenience thing, but we also want to have that as a safety purpose too.
Do any board members have questions about the things that they've shared this evening or even comments?
Yes. Are you ready? Okay, so, all right, the first thing, whenever you guys started your presentation, stuff like that, you were talking about how every student is going to be in one of these clubs or activities. Okay. How are you going to get them into a club or an activity, especially if they do not wish to be in one?
That is a fantastic question. Last week when we had our meetings, we had meetings also similar to Dave. I know Mike did the same. We met with every class. What we did then was send out a survey, and because seniors are seniors, they deserve to have that seniority. They were the first ones to be able to pick their activities in clubs. We also were very clear to every class that if you do not choose an activity or club, you will be assigned one. So at this point, we are going through that data, putting people into what they've picked, and then assigning kids to the ones that did not pick anything. Surprisingly, out of almost 1,158 kids, we had close to 1,100 kids select activities. So I guess what I'm saying is they seem pretty excited about the fact. And like I told you, these are things that they want to do. And we're just trying to give them an opportunity to meet with other kids with similar interests.
I would say too, there's a wide range of activities.
There-
It could be, there
yes.
could be a quiet area for reading
Yep.
compared to a very highly physically active group, or maybe it's chess, or there's a wide variety of opportunities because all of the staff members are required to offer an activity.
You're probably looking at close to 60, 65 different activities that we rotate.
I'm just a little concerned about us forcing students into something like that.
Any one of the kids that didn't pick something would go into an activity similar to what Dr. Martin said. It would be a quiet time for reading. Or I'm not going to, if you didn't pick anything, okay, we're going to put you out on the to do volleyball, or we're going to do
That's
something.
kind of, yeah, that's
No.
kind of what I'm looking at there. I'm like,
I
you
think
know,
respectful I think we can trust our administrators to make
Correct.
respectful choices because they also know the students.
okay,
Yeah,
well, you
it
know,
wasn't
it's-
anything at all that I think would be controversial when someone had to choose. They just didn't pick something, so you would probably end up going to a place that was a quiet.
There's a lot of
place.
research that backs up students who are engaged and active in these clubs and activities become more well-rounded. And also these are opportunities for them to learn the skills that we were just talking about that employers seek.
Right.
And so I feel confident that this will be a good thing for, 99.9% of the kids. But when there's an exception, we can work through those individual cases.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
I think it would
The-
be interesting along those same lines, Roger, to find out from those 50 or 60 kids or whatever that didn't choose anything, why they didn't.
And that's a really good point, Jeff. And I actually had a few of them in my office. Some of them didn't really give me a real reason on
sure.
why they wanted to. They were just like, that's all right. You can go ahead and assign me something. And I think what we'll probably end up doing is when we talk to those kids, giving them an additional opportunity to say, look, there's still some room in these 36 activities or clubs. Would you rather have one of those instead of us assigning you something? So we'll still do
Goes
that
down to
also.
voice and choice too.
Yes.
Voice and choice, where
Okay.
your
Right.
interests lie.
All right.
I had a question.
Could you
In
pull the
these-
mic down?
Oh, in these
Wayne will yell at you.
groups that you were saying in some of the classrooms, I'm just thinking in my classes with the freshmen, which I have I have 3 different sections of freshmen. Most actually do write fairly well and articulate, but they're emotionally, some of them are struggling, like they don't have the ability to handle stress or. So so are there ever groups in these classes where they can say, this is stressing me out today, or my parents are arguing, or I feel unhappy or whatever it is, and learn how to express this in a way that's appropriate. You see what I'm saying? That-
Right.
those
We,
sort of-
we have various options, though. We also use our counselors at school. So it's interesting that you brought up the anxiety and so forth, because over the last 2 years, COVID has amplified that.
I've seen
And,
that.
and that's
They're
really,
hyper vigilant about things that are
absolutely.
bizarre. In my
Right.
mind, almost bizarre to think about.
Right, absolutely. So that's actually part of why we looked at the restorative practices and the training that goes with it and the things that we can do for our students. With those types of students that you identified, we've identified already. So some of those students, we've actually made purposeful choices of what groups they'll be in, who would be running those groups, those kinds of things, and who
What if they're
are
not to the
trained.
Point, I mean, they don't need professional counseling, but they're
So I'll speak to that, Mike. We have a tiered system of support, a multi-tiered system of support. So tier one is what we're doing for all students. And this multi-tiered system that I'm describing is for academics, for behavior, and also for emotional wellness. And so what we're doing for all students preventively in that area is our tier one strategies, our core curriculum for all. Then there are additional supports, what I will call tier two, for students who may need a little additional support or reteaching or additional counseling. And then tier three would even be more intensive support for a few students who need that higher level. And we do have in, I think, almost all of our schools, there is clinical counseling in addition to us. So we have school counselors, we have crisis counselor, we have a social worker, but we also have clinicians that come in and provide on-site counseling and intensive therapy. We do that on site because of the access to, to the resources. So we have a tiered system of support to manage that. What they're describing to me for win time is really something that we're doing for all students. And then during those other times of the day or times of the week that it's not a club day, that's when those other, there's time in the school day for the additional interventions, or even on the other side, enrichment. But we intentionally scheduled time within the school day for what I need. And so there are 1,100 students. There are over 70 staff members at your high school, and you've got 24. And so to 170 students, there are enough people there to address those needs regularly. And so I
and
think.
those club meetings are during the school day. So this isn't like at the end of the day and then.
Correct. So
additional
students don't have to
busing.
try to find a ride home from school to participate in a club or activity. And that access to clubs and activities and that well-rounded student piece is just, for me, very important in the development of children.
So Dr. Martin, the only other thing that I would add to that is in recent years, we've used a universal screener called SRSS. This year, we're moving to a new screener called Sabres. And so one of the goals of those tools for us is to help identify students that may also have some underlying issues that may not be as prevalent or noticeable. And then we can look at different data and kind of analyze it and then begin to look and say, could we benefit from a group on this? Or we can target certain students that may have similar needs and try to work with them. We've also implemented some new programs with our counselors where they're forming these groups, such as skill streaming and some HOPS is another one that we're starting. ART is aggression replacement training. And so we're building that kind of those skills and with our staff, and then our staff are beginning to have more opportunities to again, become more targeted with certain groups of students.
Anyone else?
Elizabeth?
Oh. Thank you so much. This is so exciting. This takes me back. I wish I had this when I was in school. I got it during summer camp. They get all the kids together, we do that, and we built friendships that lasted for so long. So to hear this, instead of a child sitting at a desk, this is what we're doing today. That building of the community and the family, this is exciting. And whoever started it, the concept, It's to be commended. This is fantastic. And can't looking forward to updates. Thank you.
I feel that our administrative team, along with maybe set forth some motion, the professional development, the professional learning, the planning. But I want to not only commend the administrative team for this, but also our professional staff and our support staff members who have spent countless hours since last spring, over the summer, and even once the school year started in these trainings. And there's more to come, more to continue. And that they are taking on more responsibilities as professionals. It's not just about having my lessons plans ready and teaching my students, but it's also getting to know the whole child and being cognizant of the whole child and how they grow and how they develop, and intentionally making those efforts. And so I just wish to commend our entire staff, because their responsibilities are great. And the Keystone Central teachers and support staff members have been absolutely amazing in taking on these new responsibilities.
One more thing. I commend you on moving forward with the cell phone stuff. I mean, that's great. Hopefully we won't have to see any more TikToks coming out of the high school or the middle school. Now, the one thing I do have a question for is accountability. Okay. How are we going to be holding people accountable for these type of issues? I mean, I know we're putting the expectations out there. Okay. But is there an accountability, or is there going to be accountability going from the student all the way up through to the teacher? Because teachers need to model, so that way the students will actually, follow.
Are you speaking strictly on the cell phone policy right now, or are you
Yeah.
talking about everything?
No,
in general?
I'm looking at the cell phone issues. Okay.
Well, and we've met over the summer. The biggest thing is we follow our handbook, we follow our guidelines. We clearly stated all those. We pushed that out to parents. We explained the expectation to teachers. We explained it to staff. That is our expectation. And it's up to us and the teachers. It's up to us to hold the staff accountable. It's up to the teachers to hold the kids accountable. So at this point, for me to say that to you, I would say we are holding that true right now. And sometimes in the beginning, it's a little harder that
Yeah.
it's going to be a little rough patch, but these first 6 days have gone well. And I think the more we continue to be consistent with our rules and regulations and follow the handbook, then as the weeks go on, it will get much easier. I hope that answered your
That's-
question.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is I'm concerned that, yes, we push this out, but then you have like one or two teachers that would be, okay, go do this research and I'm just gonna play, Candy Crush or something, that, which is not really professional. Okay, where you're also gonna have students that are doing the same thing. And I just want to make sure
So
that
we'll
these
follow
things are
the-
being,
Yeah, we'll follow
held
the student
accountable.
handbook and the staff handbook for following any kind of violation.
And one of the things that I want to add too is our staff was instrumental in helping us develop this as well. So they have a lot of buy-in and want to see this
okay,
in place. So that's even a bigger piece that helps keep the
Their
accountability in
biggest
place.
revelation is the consistency.
Exactly.
that's the big thing that I'm looking at, is seeing that we are following the handbook and,
And it would
Fair,
help
firm,
if
and
we could get
consistent.
support from families too, to support what we're trying to do. That will also be, that will go a long way for the success of this for all of them. Our main purpose is learning. Our fundamental purpose of a school district is learning. And all of these things that we're doing are trying to support our students so that the learning can take place and that they're not interfering with the learning of one another. And so I hope that we don't want to lose sight that there's all these rules around everything. It's really just to create an environment and a culture to which all students can grow and all students can learn.
And I think one of the things that I'd really hope to see come out of these WIN activities is the fact that I think one of you guys mentioned it about the fact that, respecting other people's viewpoints on things. And the key word is respect. And I think that's what what has been lacking a lot in the past. I mean, just respect for everybody, particularly for the student, to the teacher. And it's just, I think if you can get that across to the kids that, that's just not acceptable to be disrespectful. And if that can come out of this, some of these discussions and some of these group things that you're doing, I think, and get some peer pressure from the kids, because I know there are a lot of kids that can't stand that kind of behavior, and they need to put some heat on some of these clowns that don't want to be respectful. And I hope that's, I've just heard feedback about some of the changes just the last couple of days through our kids, and it's just it sounds like you've gotten their attention for sure. And I think that's very important. And the consistency and everything is the other piece that, if everybody's consistent with the expectations and the rules, and just what you expect out of their behavior, I think, that'll go a long ways to making some real positive changes. And I think this is good. I think it's really good.
Mr. Johnson, and I think you're spot on. And I believe all three of you can cite the data from last year. What's the percentage of our students that follow the rules consistently?
95%.
Dave?
Yeah, we were able to narrow ours down. Last year, we had about 970 students. We could target the majority of continuous behaviors from 40 kids. I mean, that, and again, what you hear and that information, when you start listening, when you say there's 930 kids out there that we're not talking enough about that are doing really good things, too much focus goes on the negative side of it. And again, because we can target them, that's again part of our process and looking to say, there's a way to help them, and we just got to figure out that way. And I think a lot of these are just steps towards that.
Nick, do you know your number?
I do. 3.5%.
3.5% of the students.
3.5% of the students that are not following the rules on a consistent basis. So 96.5% are.
That's good to know. That's very good to know.
That's good data, but I will tell you that 5% or less consumes 95% of their time. And so we need to, that's why we're taking some steps to do some, make some changes, be more proactive. And all of our students deserve to come to schools that have a positive school culture that for learning. So I thank you for being here tonight and taking the time to share these things. I don't know that our community hears enough about the great work that you're doing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you, guys.
I have two more items on my report. One is I just want to let you know that today I hosted a meeting with Senator Chris Dush and his staff, along with Bellefonte Superintendent Tammy Burniford. She brought board member Donna Smith with her, and Superintendent Brian Griffith from Penns Valley also joined us. Senator Dush had asked after one of our legislative breakfasts that we find a very small group to sit down and really roll up sleeves in a work session on the topic of charter funding reform. So today was the day. They came, they listened, they heard. There's a difference between listening and hearing, as Donna Smith reminded them. And more so than just trying to understand the problem about the outdated charter funding reform laws was what are possible solutions? What are viable solutions? And Senator Dush asked if you could pick just one thing to change. And that was what we said is change something, change something. We have been asking for charter reform change across Pennsylvania for about 15 to 20 years. Change something. And so one of the things that we shared with him in the charter funding reform would be the amount of money that districts budget and spend on charter school tuitions to cyber charters as well as brick and mortars. That amount of money that we pay out is also in the amount of money that helps calculate how much money is spent in our general fund budget. Take that one lump of money out of the calculation. That one change alone, no student would have to change schools, nothing. But for Keystone Central alone, that's a $2 million difference annually. It's not about the dollars that we spend on our students. It's about this unfair calculation. And so that was one suggestion. The other suggestion was to have a flat rate for cyber charter tuition. We know for a fact that it costs less than $5,000 for any cyber charter to educate a child annually. But they get the same amount of money from the charter calculation for students that would be in a brick and mortar. So that has been proposed by other legislators, but that was a suggestion that was made today with the group, as well as a tiered system for identifying students with special needs. So currently there's a flat rate regardless of the level or the degree of need for a special needs student. So a tiered system of how much money would go. Currently, there's sometimes for some districts, that's a $15,000 difference from a regular ed student to a special education student. And even if that special education student only needed speech and language services versus a student has multiple disabilities and requires one-on-one aid at all times, they get the same amount of money. So I can't impress upon you enough. Please continue to contact your legislators. This school board has been instrumental, along with I think how many school boards across Pennsylvania passed a resolution to.
It was quite a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So continue to speak to your legislators about it. And I, again, just want to commend Senator Dush for taking the time out of his schedule to come and sit down with us and truly understand the numbers and look for solutions. And he's asked for us to work with him in writing some possible legislation to move forward. So I'll keep you all informed about how that's going. But again, just wanted to mention that to you today. And the final thing is I passed out an invitation to all of our board members to join our stakeholder group to review our comprehensive planning. It's due to PDE in March. And I do have a list of stakeholders that I'll be reaching out to and inviting, making sure that we have representation across our district and also from across different businesses and employers in our county who can help us determine what are the skills and traits that they're seeking in a graduate of either one of our Keystone Central high schools. But what are the skills and traits in addition to the academics or the vocational skills, or what is it that we're looking for, and then help use the data that we currently have to set some measurable goals in that area for the district. So those evenings are coming up in October, and we'll be working on that throughout the fall months. My goal is to come to the board in January with the full comprehensive plan that would be submitted to PDE.
Can we see the list of the stakeholders you recommend?
It's on my it's on my whiteboard.
Yeah, but no, I'm sure because I hopefully I know most of them. If not, I'm real excited to see it.
Thank you. The only committee that had a meeting in the last week was the Finance Committee. Mr. Knopf?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Pretty much we had a lengthy discussion the other night about different items, predominantly dealing with the budget as presented by the Commonwealth with the additional funding and how we plan on allocating it. There's number off the head, about 800,000 going to the MOUs we did with the support and secretary staff for additional funding for them to try to attract more people to those positions. So that was there. And then there's funding for PCCD grant deadline was that was submitted, and some stuff for the mental health and security. So that was done. One of the biggest things we talked about, we're going to need an action done tonight, was on our remaining bond fund. There's bond fund funding that was allocated for a parking lot here at the high school, at Central Mountain High School. And because after the engineering plans was done, it was found that we need to put a rain garden in. And
Oh, what?
apparently the rain garden was a very, very expensive endeavor. So I think it was somewhere around $800,000. It was an ungodly amount for a rain garden.
Like,
So what we'd like to do is recommend we take that funding that was allocated from the remaining bond money for the parking lot and move that over to use, because it has to be used by the end of the year, bond money moved to the Central Mountain Track Fund. So we
The
paid
middle
for-
school track
Middle fund,
project.
Yeah, Central Mountain Middle School Track Fund. So we're paying that anyway, so we're just gonna move money around. Instead of taking it out of the capital fund to pay for the track, we're gonna take it out of the bond fund to pay for the track. And we'll still have the money available in our capital fund. But we have to tidy up the bond account.
So we would be making those, we made the recommendation to finance committee, but those actions would be on for October.
Okay, I thought we needed that done now. I thought,
For the agenda. Oh, sorry.
No, it wasn't put on the
yeah,
agenda.
okay,
So no, but it'll be on for
It's
October.
on for October. Following the finance committee meeting, Susan and myself and Rob sat down and drafted the motions based on what the finance committee said, and then we put it on, it's on the draft agenda for next month.
okay. I thought after we left the other, we talked that we'd have to have it done to clean that up now.
October would be
Okay.
the deadline.
All right, we're good.
but
So
they-
basically that's it. So
Yeah.
the other thing we talked about was a grant writer. And that's going to be on probably October also is paying to hire a grant writer through PSBA. The cost was around
Well,
$9,000.
it should be 40, the contract would be 4,600. And then if there were any additional à la carte services for individual grants or grant reports, that would come through too. So I want to get back with that gentleman and see what kind of contract they give and what that contract language is for that. But I would, if I'm hoping to be able to have that prepared for you for next month.
Yeah, I thought the number we came up with the other, like $9,000. It's $4,600 for the original one, then so much for every additional thing.
Yeah, I was calculating if we did any à la carte services for up to 3 grants in 1 year, it could cost us up to $9,000 to get assistance in seeking viable grants that match the projects and things that we have in place. And number 2, then helping us write the grant in a way that would make us more successful in attaining it. They do not, however, help us manage the grant once we get it, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That was a
That's
great
good.
job. That was a very
Thank you
long
much.
meeting and a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
information.
Way to make it quick. All right. So with that, Mr. Allen,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. We pass the entire agenda in its entirety, except for those items specifically removed for special consideration.
I'd like to G2, please.
and I'd like to
G2.
pull G1.
G1.
Okay. Any others?
Anybody else?
Have a second, please.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes,
Mr. Coke,
You're muted, Wayne.
Yes.
Thanks, Wayne.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dietrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
and Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
9 yes votes, motion passes.
Thank you. Feels good to have 9 votes.
Yes, it does.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the board secretary to cast votes on behalf of the school board to electronically elect PSBA officers with the slate of candidates that have been presented in the agenda.
There's only 1 for each.
Yeah, well, and yeah, that's what I was, okay.
So we never discussed it.
So, I'm making the motion for it. Anybody?
I think it's fine. It's a good point stating that there really isn't a choice.
Yeah,
It's
there really isn't
basically
a
one-
choice, but we should
so
still, you know, in case
That
anybody has any
that is a good
write-ins.
point. It's something I took note of as well.
Well, I was
But
looking at, we get the second and then with discussion.
yeah,
So. I was
I'll
gonna
second
point
it.
Okay. So like you were saying,
Yeah.
Dave, this is, I mean, this is a bogus
So-
election here.
Right.
Everybody, they're already got,
Well,
you know, they've already chosen who they want.
exactly. Yes.
So,
So just go through and read the names.
They're
and
unopposed.
Okay,
positions
so-
we have it on.
okay, we're looking at the trustees for the insurance. They are going to be Kathy K. Swope and Roberta M. Marcus. For the office of president
I'm just
Michael
checking.
Gosser.
is Michael Gossert. Vice president is Allison Mathis. Central Zone representative is Julie Preston, and section C1 advisor is Thomas Carrick.
We have a motion and a second. Can we roll call, please?
Mr. Coke,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dietrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
and Mr. Knopf.
Yes.
9 yes votes, motion passed.
Okay, I'd also like to make a motion to approve the contract with PASBO for services with the interim business manager for a limited term. With the recommendation of the administration, resolve that Keystone Central School District Board of Directors approve the following recommendation for the board. And also approve the contract with PASBO for the services of an interim business manager. And that would be Jeffrey F. Wall.
Madam
Second.
I'll
President,
second it.
Yes, Mr. Coke.
I was going to second it, but it's already been
Jeff beat you. Sorry, Wayne.
very good.
All right, and discussion on this?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't feel comfortable having a part-time business manager considering how much they're already doing. So the board with administration had a lot of discussions. And I want to give Mark Kondo a lot of credit because, and also Dr. Martin, she made a list with administration on how they're dividing up all these extra things for all of our staff to add on to. So his credentials are fabulous, but I don't feel comfortable with a part-timer, but I know our staff will do whatever it takes to get it done. And I don't like being in a position, putting more responsibility on them. So it will pass, but I just don't approve. I just wish it wasn't part-time.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Lynch,
No.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Dietrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Mr. Coke.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, motion passed.
All right.
Like to make a motion to adjourn.
And I will second.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. See you next month.